Hello and welcome once again to the Non-Prophets. This show is brought to you by the Atheist Community of Austin. I'm your host, Jeff D., and my producer is telling me we're not on the air. What's the holdup, Russell?
I don't know, start the music again or something.
Start the music.
What?
Or maybe we are on the air. Okay. So, pardon that little glitch, we are in fact on the air. This is only our second time, folks. Be gentle with us.
The joys of having a 2-minute delay.
Yeah. It's a little confusing because the last show still runs for about 2 minutes after we start talking. Where was I? I'm your host, Jeff D. Our guest co-host today and producer is Russell Glasser. Say hi, Russell.
Hi, everybody.
And Ginny Glasser is manning the chat room. We are live if you're listening to us on December 15, 2001. The Atheist Community of Austin is a non-profit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We're in Austin, Texas, where we have weekly meetings every Sunday morning at the Hot Jumbo Bagel Shop, except for the first Sunday of each month when we have our lecture series at 11 a.m. in the Longhorn Room of Fur's Cafeteria at North Cross Mall. Ooh, let's see. For more information, you can visit our website, www.atheist-community.org, or call our voicemail at 512-371-2911. Russell, you want to do news?
Not yet.
Okay, well, let me just keep blabbing then. We're still getting our ducks in a row here. Let's see, we're on for an hour, so stick around. We got plenty to talk about. And we plan on setting up a phone line so we can take live calls at some point in the future, but we're not ready for that yet. For now, please post any comments or questions you have in the Atheist Network chat room, and we'll address them as time permits. I want to remind everybody about the 3rd International Rationalist Conference in New Delhi, India, in February 8 to 12 of next year. For more information on that, you can go to www.rationalistinternational.net. Any instances of slurs, defamation, or discrimination against atheists or other non-believers in the United States media can be reported to the National Atheist Ombuds by emailing ombuds@atheism.org. Please remember to include as many details as possible and a news source where applicable. A little Atheist Community of Austin news. We have a solstice party tonight is that 6 o'clock, Russell?
Yes.
6 o'clock at the home of Russell and Ginny Glasser. For RSVP or directions, if you're in the group, you know how to contact Russell. On Saturday, January 12 at 11 o'clock, the ACA will sponsor a state-church separation rally on the south steps of the state capitol in honor of the 200th anniversary of Jefferson's famous letter to the Danbury Baptists, in which he first referred to a wall of separation between church and state. The actual anniversary of that is January 1st, which is even more cause to celebrate the new year. Representative Elliot Neistat has agreed to be the state official sponsor, and we hope to have both ACA speakers and some representatives from other groups. Once again, that's January 12, 11 o'clock, I assume, a.m., on the state capitol steps in Austin, Texas. American Atheists has sent out an action alert, a protest at Texas Return Prayer to School rally on Monday. That would be Monday, December 17. Okay, you know all about George Bush in the White House. Well, we've got his vice governor. What do they call that? Lieutenant governor?
Evil twin brother, I believe, is what they call it.
All right. Well, he's running Texas now, and darned if he just doesn't think that we all ought to ignore the Constitution. In fact, he has said as much. Ignore the Constitution and go right ahead and have Christian prayers in schools. So he's going to be speaking at a, let's see, at the Southside Baptist Church in Palestine, Texas, in order to counter-protest, or the people, atheists are going to meet there to counter-protest acting Governor Perry. You have something, Russell?
Oh, you want me to go for news now?
Yeah, go ahead for news.
Okay. These are actually just 3 completely random articles that I pulled off of infidels.org.
That's fine. I got more random ones when you're done.
In case you don't know about infidels.org, and every good atheist should, it's got a great big modern and historical library, an atheist news wire. It's absolutely terrific. The first piece that I pulled off was actually an editorial in the New York Times this week. As Jeff talked about on the show last week, Pat Robertson has left the Christian Coalition. Does that mean the Christian Coalition is actually shutting down, or does that just mean that he's no longer at the head of it?
What I read is that he's just no longer the head. But, like when Falwell stepped down from the religious right. What the hell's the name of that organization he was? You know what I mean.
Wasn't he also head of the Christian Coalition?
No. I don't think he had a whole different thing.
Okay.
Anyway, when he stepped down, that group kind of fell apart. So everybody's hoping that this is the death knell of the Christian Coalition, even if they're not officially shutting it down yet.
Right. Well, this article says that even though Pat Robertson is gone, the right still has religion, which is not a big surprise. But the point of this editorial is that, whether or not the Christian Coalition succeeded in its mission long terms as far as making billions of dollars or not, it certainly, what they say is the religious right has transformed American politics, and credit for that goes to Pat Robertson. Under the inept leadership of Jerry Falwell in the 1980s, Christian conservatives formed merely one of half a dozen groups in the broad Reagan coalition. In the 1990s, Mr. Robertson's genius as a political organizer permitted religious conservatives to gain enough clout with the Republican Party. Yes?
Moral Majority, that's the group I'm trying to think of.
Oh, yes.
That was Falwell.
Source of those great bumper stickers, the moral majority is neither one. Well, anyway, it goes on to say that, it's largely thanks to Pat Robertson that the religious right now has such a firm grip over the Republican Party, which it clearly does. I mean, you can see these days, right, that everybody, even more and more Democrats want to make this their campaign issue, that, we're real, true American patriots, and we want to bring prayer back to the school, the hell with the Constitution. And they're saying that, even though critics are talking about how Pat Robertson has failed, in a broader sense, he's really succeeded, unfortunately.
You mean in the sense that everything's... Yeah, but see, if he doesn't get to personally benefit from that, then he hasn't succeeded. I mean, he's playing religion for personal gain, trying to get himself to be president and crap, So if it's not working out for him, then... That's... that whole walkie-talkie thing is kind of annoying.
Okay, forget that.
All right, so... where was I? I'm all derailed now. My point was that, if there's not going to be some big-name guy making a big stink about it, eventually we'll take the country back. It's temporary. There's been a temporary Christianizing of America, but those guys are gone.
Well, that would be nice, but it looks to me like it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Well, things usually do. Are you done there? Or do you want to go? You have more news, right?
Yeah, I have a couple more things.
Go ahead.
Do you remember that study where they were testing whether prayer works or not?
Which one?
There were a bunch of them, but apparently, after more testing, they've done. After more testing, it looks like it doesn't really make any difference whatsoever, and that's a big surprise there.
Oh, gee.
And, of course, in light of these new tests, Christians are just scrambling to cover their butts and saying things like, well, I don't think we can randomize God because we can't truly understand God's will. So,
oh, it's that bullshit again.
Yeah,
it's if they think that they have evidence, they'll claim that there's evidence when they have their face rubbed in the fact that there ain't no fucking evidence. Then it's God's mysterious and we can't be using. If God's so frickin' mysterious, then stop claiming that you know anything about him. Stop claiming that he's that he's Jesus' dad. Stop claiming that he loves you. Stop claiming that he created shit. If you don't know anything about it, then shut the fuck up. And if you do know something about it, then fine. We demand the evidence, and when you can't produce it, we're going to call you idiots. Sorry, a little editorial comment. Back to the news.
You appear to be really reveling in the fact that we're no longer constrained by the rules of the Austin Community Access Station.
I'm trying out my newfound freedom to cuss. Go ahead and do another news story then, and then I'll take over. This switching. We only got one microphone here, and it barely picks up one of us at a time. So why don't you go ahead and finish before I jump in again?
Yeah, if you hear some clunking around, that's us moving the microphone. And, we really are working on the technology issues and expect things to get a lot better in the next few months. The final one I haven't actually read very thoroughly, but it's...
Well, why don't you do that while I take over?
All right.
Okay. Here's more, adjusting the mic here. Here's more Atheist Community of Austin news. We're, in addition to the rally on January 12th, we are also attempting to get the mayor of Austin to declare January Celebrate State Church Separation Month. And we've sent a letter to Mayor Garcia with a suggested proclamation that he might want to try out. And I'm not going to read all of that because it's long. But again, on January 1, 1802, Thomas Jefferson wrote his famous letter to the Danbury Baptists, this thing that fundamentalists don't want you to know about. And now the mayor of Austin is nowhere near as right-wing conservative as the governor is, so we have a chance there. I've got another news story. Nothing nearly as fun as the man who sliced up his own wiener last week. But it's some good news. Louisiana's school prayer law, which evolved from allowing a moment of silent meditation to permitting spoken prayer in public classrooms, has been declared unconstitutional by a federal appeals court.
Yay!
A panel of Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals voted 3-0 Tuesday to uphold the judge's 1999 ruling to strike the law down. The state had asked the appeals court to reinstate the law. A 1976 Louisiana law initially allowed for silent meditation. It was amended in 1992 to include the word prayer, and again in 1999 to remove the word silent. So there you go. That is exactly the agenda of these prayer in school creepazoids. They'll say, it's not just Christians, it's for anybody to use for whatever purposes they want. That's just to get their foot in the door. What they're really after is to transform our public schools into factories churning out good little Christians from whom they can suck money and support. So that's over in Louisiana. You got something, Russell?
Yeah, I have one more thing. There's a group of people, this article is entitled, Crusading for a Christian Nation. Rah, rah, rah. Let's see, and it's happening in Chattanooga, Tennessee, which is the kind of place I imagine that you would expect this sort of thing to happen. It said, on a recent Sunday, 3,000 people showed up at a downtown sports arena for a Ten Commandments rally that had the fervor of an old-fashioned tent revival. Declaring themselves Christian soldiers in a war against evil, that's us, they were waving American flags and pouring thousands of dollars into collection buckets. And this is all stemming from that sort of mentality that caused Jerry Falwell to say that the reason the September 11th attacks happened is because God is lowering his magical shield of protection because we're not all fundamentalist enough anymore. So these guys are these are the people who are looking to get Ten Commandments posted in courtrooms and to get prayer back in schools and football games, and they're rallying, and they're serious.
I just want to know when we're going to have a Go Fuck Yourself rally. Get a whole bunch of people together in a big sports arena and tell those Christians to go fuck themselves. That's what I want to know.
I'm there.
Okay, great. We'll start working on that, folks. Now, if you're like me and you waste a whole lot of time on news groups like alt-atheism, arguing with Christians over the internet, you get a lot of weird email from people that, like, think that because your message was cross-posted to, like, alt-Christian Baptist, that you're some kind of religious idiot that they can suck money from. So, my latest crazy email I got is, subject, become a minister now. Minister Charles Simpson has the power to make you a legally ordained minister within 48 hours. I already have questions here. What is this legally ordained? I thought that that whether you're ordained or not has got nothing to do with the law. Do you know anything about this?
No.
Is our government in the business of ordaining ministers?
Legally ordained?
It says legally ordained here. As a minister, you will be authorized to perform the rites and ceremonies of the church.
Oh, this is spam. They always throw in words like legal. I mean, they're just trying to appear legitimate, right?
You think so?
Yes.
Then check out this next bit. Weddings. Marry your brother, sister, or your best friend.
Wait a minute. Marry your sister?
Don't settle for being the best man or bridesmaid. Most states require that you register your certificate that we send you with the state prior to conducting the ceremony. You know, most states don't allow you to marry your brother or sister in the first place. Baptisms. This is creepy. You can say, "Welcome to the world. I am your minister and your uncle." What a special way to welcome a child of God.
Oh my goodness.
First thing out of the womb, some creep that sent, $29.95 to this asshole is leaning over your little infant body, calling himself your uncle.
Yeah, this is the same Uncle Bob that you're going to be pressing charges against one day.
Want to start your own church? After your legal ordination, you may start your own congregation. You know, I happen to know there are people doing this without any kind of authorization from Minister Charles Simpson whatsoever.
Martin Wagner in the chat room says, "Can you be arrested if you are illegally ordained?"
Hey, is that Martin Wagner?
Yeah, that's right.
Martin.
By the way, in case anybody doesn't know, this is live, and we are, we have to repeat this occasionally since we don't have neat little words that flash up on the screen like the TV show. But since we're live, you can participate by going to the chat room, which you get to by going to www.atheistnetwork.com and clicking on chat. It's internet relay chat, so you can download your own client or whatever.
And now are we recording this show now, Russell?
This time we are, yeah.
We are. Excellent. So this is only live if you are, in fact, listening to us on December 15th.
Right, 2001.
Right. So what else we got? I know you had more news there. You want to go through that? Or
no, that's all the news I got.
All right.
I have some personal news, but I can wait on that.
All right. Well, here's something. This is not exactly atheist related, but it kind of dovetails. I have been seeing these bumper stickers around. Maybe you've seen them. Yeah. There's of course the American flag emblem on there, and then it says "Power of Pride."
No,
and
I haven't seen
these
that.
drive me frickin' crazy. Since when is pride a tool? Pride is something you earn, right? You do good things, you accomplish stuff, and then you're proud of what you've done. But suddenly pride is this thing that, all of us in America need to just be really proud.
Yeah,
as long as we're proud enough, we can do anything. Like tromping all over each other's rights.
Yeah, so you're saying pride doesn't have any power because it's a payoff. It's not.
Pride is a payoff. If you got pride and it wasn't a payoff for something you actually did, that's called being an asshole.
We have no shortage of those to talk to, though.
Well, that's true.
Probably sitting in those cars.
I know. What else is going on? I talked about the Thomas Jefferson Danbury Baptist Letter anniversary. Oh, is there, in case any of you out there don't know about it, the Atheist Alliance is having its convention up in Dallas, or is it Fort Worth? Fort Worth.
I think we said Fort Worth.
Easter weekend, 2002. Now, I know there will be a number of members from the Atheist Community of Austin up there. I may be also. We've been invited to send somebody up there to run their gaming track. And this is wacky because, I come from a games industry background, and so I spearheaded the Godless Gamers group here at the ACA, where once a week we get together to play board games and card games and stuff. You got something, Russell?
Yeah, just another comment from the chat room after the usual delay about pride. Martin Wagner, once again, is now pointing out that pride is one of the 7 deadly sins. So it's kind of odd that Christians especially are talking about its power. It would be interesting, actually, to see the power of lust go on bumper stickers pretty soon.
Power of gluttony.
Yeah!
With a big fork. So anyway, we got this Godless Gamers group that meets once a week. It's Monday nights. And the Atheist Alliance folks got wind of this, and so they're trying to get one or more of us up there to run gaming things, or atheists to sit around and play games together at their convention, which I think is kind of cool. So, now what?
23 minutes. Well,
we're half the way in. Did I mention that our opening music was Mystical Shit by King Missile? I think I did.
The album was called Mystical Shit?
The album is good. That is the title track from the Mystical Shit album by King Missile, 1990. Go ahead, read more news.
Okay, well, this isn't news, actually. I just wanted to tell the viewers about an interesting... this is what it's like to be the webmaster for the Atheist Community of Austin, because I get to receive all the nasty email that people send after we have our TV show every week, which is different from this format in particular, because people who are just sort of randomly flipping through channels happen to run across us and go, "Hey, look, atheists! I think I'll call and bug them." So anyway, I got this email one day after after some interesting comments about Christians having this agenda to. There's a certain group called the Christian Reconstructionists, of whom there was a recent Bush appointee who's actually a member. Who was that again?
Of what?
The Christian Reconstructionist movement. Their stated goal is to basically replace the U.S. government with. Hello. Oh, okay. Sorry.
I don't know the name of that guy.
Okay. Well, anyway, I mean, they want to replace the Constitution with biblical principles, which means flogging unbelievers and that sort of thing. And Martin on the show last week quite reasonably said that these guys had an agenda on the level of the Taliban. And an irate viewer emailed me after that to give me a lesson in the history of atheism and show how it's much worse.
The most about the history of atheism,
right? And I think in a way this illustrates why we have this show and that show, because the only information that people ever get about atheists is apparently coming from Christian pamphlets and other TV shows that tell you all about what atheists are like. I listen to some of these shows on the radio, so I'm kind of familiar with these kind of arguments. But according to this guy, the history of atheism basically started with Charles Darwin, who then influenced Karl Marx to write Das Kapital and the Communist Manifesto, which has influenced every atheist from then on. And then he said Hitler was an atheist, which we know isn't true.
Now, hold on a second. Can we take this point by point?
Okay, sure.
There's all kinds of interesting things going on here.
Yeah, that's right.
I've got a book which I want to do a review of on the show at some point called A History of Western Atheism.
Well, it's your show.
And it's our show.
Okay.
And this historian in this book traces the roots of atheism, interestingly, back to the ancient Greek philosophers. The Greek philosophers had kind of a rift at one point where the guys were into the natural sciences and looking up in the sky and saying, we got these stories of Zeus hurling thunderbolts, but I just never see him up there.
This was around when?
I can't give you the year of the ancient Greek philosophers. It's
300 BC-ish, I would guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
They basically had a split over this issue, and half of them decided, there's just there's no clear evidence that there's any gods, and the other half decided, well, you're right, there's no clear evidence of any gods, but there's still these ultimate questions that need answers, and so for them we're going to postulate one single supreme being. And all this Aristotelian philosophy that the Christian Church, Catholic Church in particular, eventually started leaning on, came from that side of this rift. So it's like monotheism is atheism's bastard twin, historically speaking. Okay, go on with this lunatic.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much what God has always been about, is like, hey, we don't know the answers to these big questions, so let's make up this big guy, and we can always refer to him as the answer, right?
Right.
Anyway, he goes on to say that the Communist Manifesto was inspired by Darwin, which in turn was who in turn was more or less the inventor of atheism, as far as I can tell from this letter.
Okay, this guy's an idiot.
Yes.
The Romans were calling the Christians atheists.
Right. Then of course, communism led to Lenin and Stalin, and also Adolf Hitler, who we all know was killing Jews because he was such a profound believer in Darwinism.
Good grief.
Because he wanted to purify the species.
If I have to, I will drag out my creepy quotes from Martin Luther.
Well, I dragged out some creepy quotes from Mein Kampf, actually, which is easy to find on the internet. As a matter of fact, I found this at a website called stormfront.org, and when I looked into it, I found out that this isn't just a place that's posting Mein Kampf for the hell of it. It's actually David Duke's group. Remember David Duke?
Yeah.
Okay. He was what was he? He was like an American Nazi who wanted to run for Congress or something.
Something.
And he didn't even come close to winning, did he? I hope. Anyway, I went searching through Mein Kampf and I found this nice little nugget. Okay, remember, I'm reading from Mein Kampf. It doesn't mean I'm supporting it, guys, okay? The Jew himself is the best example of the kind of product which this religious training involves. His life is of this world only, and his mentality is as foreign to the true spirit of Christianity as his character was foreign to the great founder of this new creed 2,000 years ago. And the founder of Christianity made no secret indeed of his estimation of the Jewish people. When he found it necessary, he drove those enemies of the human race out of the temple of God. It goes on, but I think that's enough.
That's Hitler speaking.
That's Hitler speaking and saying how awful Jews are in Jesus' eyes.
Here's another quote. I read this last week, but just for fun. First, to set fire to their synagogues or schools, and to bury and cover with dirt whatever will not burn, so that no man will ever again see a stone or cinder of them. This is to be done in honor of our Lord and of Christendom, so that God might see that we are Christians, and do not condone or knowingly tolerate such public lying, cursing, and blaspheming of his Son and of his Christians. That's not Hitler, though. That's Martin Luther.
Oh. So, the history of Christian anti-Semitism actually goes back quite a long ways, right?
Well, absolutely.
All right. Now, I mean, I don't want to I mean, as usual, when we make these sort of comments, I don't want to make it look like this is the way all Christians think, because they really don't. I mean, I know lots of really nice people who also happen to be clueless Christians, but
but that's not the point, right? We are not talking here to a guy. We don't know whether this guy who wrote this email to the TV show is a bad person. That's not the issue. Right. He made a claim. His claim was that Hitler was an atheist. Yeah. His claim is that atheism started with Darwin, and he's completely and utterly full of shit. Even very nice people can be completely full of shit, and when they are, they need to be told that they're full of shit.
Absolutely. Let's see. Then he went on and talked all about Hitler's occult influence, and I was like, what the hell does that have to do with atheism?
Yeah, I mean, if fewer atheists believe in the occult than Christians.
Right. I mean, the thing is, I think these people have this kind of idea that atheism is something against Christianity, and occultism is something that's against Christianity, so atheism must be about the occult. You know, it's interesting logic there.
I'm trying to follow the chat room here, and it looks like maybe we got a Christian in there.
There's some kind of interesting argument going on. Hey, well, actually, take over the microphone.
All right,
for a second.
Take over. You know, it's the thing is, right? Even if, and I'm willing to concede, most Christians are decent people, right? Even if that's the case, for them to lie or unknowingly spread untruths about the history of Christianity, about what has been, about what acts have been prompted by or condoned by Christianity, about the history of atheism, all that is deserving of response, even if most Christians are nice people. And it raises a separate issue when we get to the question of whether a God exists or not. If we have fundamentalists, for example, telling us that the entire Bible is literally true, and then we can point to passages where their God acts like a sadistic prick, then it's fair to ask them, you know, if that's how your God behaved according to your Bible, which you think is literally true, then are you going to admit that you worship a sadistic prick? That is a fair question, even if these people worshiping a God who appears to be a sadistic prick are, in their daily lives, pretty nice. That's a whole separate issue. What do you, Russell? Do you got something? Where did you run off?
Well, I just wanted to see what was happening in the chat room, and it's hard to pick up on several pages of conversation just while you're talking. Apparently there's some kind of talk about whether this is a just war we're in, and it has nothing to do with our show, so...
Yeah, I got sick of paying any attention to it a long time ago, so we're not going to talk about that today. There's plenty of people talking about that. You can find them anywhere. What else? Well, let's continue through this letter.
Okay, continuing through this letter, he then proceeds to tick off more people, or to list off more people that he thinks are atheists, such as Benito Mussolini, Mao Zedong, and at this point I interrupted and said, hey, wait a minute. You know, can you demonstrate, even assuming that you've named some people who happen to be atheists and who happen to be bad people, can you demonstrate that their atheism actually caused their badness, basically? Because, you know, when we talk about particular atrocities that have been committed in the past due to Christianity, we actually try to establish some kind of link. You know, like take the Crusades. I mean, you will find no shortage of writings by people saying, well, you know, we have to kill these people because they're unbelievers and because we want them to turn around to Christianity. But you won't find any, I mean, I don't think you can find anything by Stalin or Mao Zedong or anybody like that who said, we want to oppress these people because we need them to become atheists.
Right, exactly so. Exactly so. Now, you may find And this is a more knotty question. You may find resistance fighters who opposed the communist regime in Russia, who also were religious, and it may well be their interpretation of their religion's teachings that told them that they were supposed to be against communism, right? But any group that was in opposition to the communist regime would get pretty much the same kind of treatment. There's nothing special about religion that makes communists want to get rid of it. It just doesn't follow.
Right.
And I got into a bunch of arguments with people about this particular thing after September 11, right? And this is the conclusion that I came to. I don't think that it is fair to say, in most cases, that Christianity or even Islam, in the case of the terrorists who attacked the World Trade Center, that it prompted them to want to kill people that weren't Muslims. Even though the Quran does say, on no uncertain terms, in a lot of places, you're supposed to go out and kill everybody who's not one of us. But let's set that aside, because most people, there's similar things in the Bible, right? And most people don't take that seriously anymore either. Even most people that believe the Bible's literally true. Go figure. But what it does do, what a religion does do, is it gives you a belief in a divine lawgiver, a guy who is outside of or above morality and has the authority, by virtue of being God, supposedly has the authority to tell us what's right and what's wrong. As soon as you've got a belief in a being like that, all you got to do is make one tiny little step further, which is, we hate those Americans, and probably God does too, so God wants us to go kill a bunch of them. Sorry, I'm doing sort of a Hindu accent. I don't mean to bash the wrong ethnic group right now. But once you believe there's a guy who can change the rules for you like that, who can take something like mass murder and say, in this case it's okay, because these are special bad guys that my rules don't apply to, right? Soon as you got a divine lawgiver who can change the rules for you whenever he wants, and you believe in him, you can change the rules for yourself whenever you want, just by appealing to your belief in this supernatural guy. That is why religion is dangerous morally.
Yeah, and it's interesting and somewhat ironic that the religious right now decries what they see as the liberals who want to get rid of this, to get rid of objective morality as they see it, well, they claim that the liberals are trying to get everybody to see this subjective morality or relativism, moral relativism. Right. That's what they call it. And they say, if you would only see how, you have to have an objective moral standard. Well, it's funny because the idea of having a God is the most subjective thing of all, because whatever this God says is right magically becomes right, with no actual argument or measuring it against consequences or anything.
There was a name for that particular dilemma. Do you remember what it's called? I know Martin knows it. Huh? Euthyphro? No. Martin will hear this and he'll type the name. Okay. Yeah, there is nothing more subjective, nothing more completely pulled out of your ass than some God who creates the rules defining what's right and what's wrong, right? And it's a major, philosophical problem with theism, particularly at least theism where you got a divine lawgiver that says, if a being is just making up what the rules of morality are, then it's just made up. And if it's not, then it's not a God, because it's appealing to some higher source for its morality. And again, and we talked about this a lot last week. What morality really is a bunch of rules we make up for our benefit. That is what it's for. And as time has gone by and our cultures have changed and people have become more empowered, so that the power is less concentrated in the hands of a few and more accessible to the masses, though that comes and goes. But certainly individuals have a lot more personal power now than they did, say, in ancient Israel. When that happens, you need moral rules that work more fairly for everyone, and that is why during the course of history we have our moral systems have evolved toward more and more justice for everyone. And that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with the fact that morality is made up because it's turning into something that is good for everybody. We are waiting for a response from Martin. I see you typing on it. Okay.
Well, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, go on.
Well, anyway, this guy, then I was in the middle of his big list of scary atheists, and, they include Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler, and, of course, founder of Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger. In the middle of this tirade of some truly bad people, he then wants to throw in founder of Planned Parenthood. Let's see. And then, of course, he says, atheists are always worried about Christians trying to push their agenda in politics, but I'm more worried about atheists such as Oliver Wendell Holmes, who served on the Supreme Court for 30 years. And at this point I said, of course, using your Holmes as your boogeyman says more to me about your mindset than it says about anything else. But I'm interested to know in what way you believe that Holmes worked to promote communism, which I think was your point. Did Holmes order anyone to death because he was an atheist? How did Holmes betray the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, or any other law? And what does Holmes's presence on the Supreme Court have to do with anything we were talking about? Basically, the thing is, atheism isn't communism, and atheism isn't evolution. Atheism is atheism. Atheism is being without... Okay.
Keep going.
Atheism is being without a belief in God. And if that causes you to do certain things, then you need to actually demonstrate the link instead of just saying, well, this guy didn't believe in God, and he did this bad thing, so that was the cause of the other thing. By that logic, if it turns out that Charles Manson didn't believe in leprechauns, then that proves that the reason he killed all those people is because of his lack of belief in leprechauns, right? And then he goes on to say, now I know why we had under God placed in the pledge so the U.S. wouldn't turn into an atheistic communist state. And I said,
It is way time for that go fuck yourselves rally.
Yeah, really. So as most atheists know, the under God phrase was stuck in during the McCarthy regime.
All this nonsense about belief in God makes you not do crimes, that's utter nonsense. What belief in God does is it makes you a member of a club that when you commit crimes, they say you were justified, or they make excuses for you.
Right, and you remember what Christians say. Christians aren't perfect, they're just forgiven, which means basically they're absolved of all the responsibility of not doing bad things, because if they do it, then they can just go confess it and get pardoned for it. That's just another way that it basically removes all concept of personal responsibility from you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big get out of jail free card. right? And as evidence of this, I want to point to the one instance we had of a little Christian boy going nuts with a gun in his school, right? Every other one, it was like, oh, that kid hangs out with satanic cults, or that kid is a Wiccan, or that kid is, his parents don't take him to church, or blah blah blah, right? All these accusations against all the kids that waved guns around, except when it was obviously a little Christian boy. And then what happened? Well, his minister comes out and says, "Oh, he just got very confused, and we're going to show him our love and all this nonsense." I didn't see them extending their love to people that were not in their club. It's utter nonsense. And Russell's typing. Okay, should I continue with your letter here?
Well, I can finish it up.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't think I'm going to be able to communicate to Martin what we were talking about, because it's already passed. But anyway, when I mentioned Joe McCarthy, this guy actually wrote back to me and posted a link saying, you might want to rethink your views about McCarthy, because here's a website showing that he was really a good guy, and mostly he was right about all the people who were communists.
And that answers the question, how exactly? Because, sure.
Anyway, that about does it, except that he claimed that Jefferson was an atheist, or was a Christian, and so I had to shoot that one down.
Right. Did you give him the whole that he called himself a true Christian thing we talked about last week?
No, but it looks like he's going to argue with me on that, so I'll get my chance.
By the way, on the subject of these terrorist attacks, I've heard people claim that neither the Bible nor the Quran supports suicide terrorism. And as a matter of fact, there is a great story in the Bible about a suicide terrorist. You know what that story is? That is the story of Samson.
Oh, right.
Who? And here is the actual.
Down the walls.
He prays to God to give him strength, as he did on many occasions, but this time it was to perform a suicide killing. Judges, chapter 16, verse 30. Samson said, "Let me die with the Philistines." Then he pushed with all his might, and down came the temple on the rulers and all the people in it. Thus he killed many more when he died than when he lived.
Well, now, wait a minute. I'm not sure this is very fair to that story, because wasn't he actually a prisoner in the temple at the time?
Don't know.
Sorry, I have to play biblical advocate.
I don't think so. All right.
Some people think magnets fix arthritis. Some people think Joe was.
Jeff's wife Manda is in the chat room. She says, hey, some people think magnets fix arthritis, and some people think Joe McCarthy was cool. I mean, everybody's got their opinions, right?
Yeah. And some people are just completely stupid and wrong.
Oh, well.
So,
we got 10 minutes left. Should I bring up my Santa Claus
You should.
topic?
I think that's a great topic to round out the show on.
Okay, we're going to completely shift gears now. I got to tell you something. My wife is now pregnant. Let's see. This is going to be my first child, although she's got 2 other daughters, and she's been an atheist, and so they have never believed in Santa Claus. And recently I asked her youngest daughter, Caitlin, whether she thinks that the new baby should be raised to believe in Santa Claus, and she said yes, it would be more fun for him or her that way. We don't know the sex yet. So, I'm kind of split on my thinking about this, because on the one hand, I've always believed that it's not really right to teach a kid to believe in things that aren't true, and I know you have some things to say about this, Jeff. On the other hand, maybe I don't know, maybe it will be a valuable lesson when they grow up about, you shouldn't believe things just because people say it's true. Well, I'd like to throw this open to the chat room, by the way, in a couple of minutes when you actually hear the question.
There we got the response from Martin finally. It's called the Euthyphro
Just what I said.
Euthyphro dilemma. Thank you very much, Martin. In response to Russell's dilemma, I wasn't at all surprised to hear that your little girl thinks that this would be a good idea, because little girls are not in the position of having to worry about what the ramifications are for society as a whole if we make a practice of lying to people just to make their lives more fun. And those of us that are adults, especially those of us who have gotten out from under the thumb of religion and can see what is actually going on, have a better perspective on this, right? It is not good for our society to make a practice of lying to people to make them happier. It's just not that good of an idea. Russell?
Okay, well, let me give you a counter-argument on that.
Right.
I think that teaching a kid about Santa Claus and then maybe yanking the rug out from under them when they get old enough might be the best way to introduce them to the idea of what this God stuff is all about. And I know you're a Dan Barker fan, and you've probably read the Just Pretend book, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is a kid's book where basically they spend half the book talking, it's aimed at kids who presumably do not believe in Santa Claus at this point. And they say, all these kids believe in Santa Claus, and here's the reason, 1, 2, 3. It makes them act on their best behavior because they think Santa is watching. It's nice to believe that there's this guy who can move at the speed of light and deliver all these toys. But you don't believe in Santa Claus because there's no evidence for him, right? And then they spend the second half of the book setting up the parallels between Santa Claus and God. And I think that's the greatest kids book I've ever read. What I'm saying is, maybe having a belief in Santa Claus and learning the truth later is good for them.
I think it is good to learn stuff, but I don't think we need to artificially fill kids' heads full of myths so that they can learn better later. There are all kinds of things going on all the time where there is a common assumption about something that will be found not to be true later. And this just comes up in all kinds of cases. You don't have to make up a Santa Claus so you'll have an example of a thing that isn't true for them to learn it's not true. Curtis says, I agree with Jeff. Furthermore, I do not think that a child must actually believe in Santa to have a good time at Christmas.
Well, that's certainly true, and you can ask plenty of Jewish kids about that. I mean, Jews don't have a parallel between, a guy who delivers toys. They ask their parents, basically, which is what we do anyway when we grow up, right?
Conductus is saying, if they want to tell the kids, that's their business. If they don't, that's their business. I agree. And again, when we're talking about, what makes sense here, we are not talking about passing laws telling parents what they can or cannot tell their children. You've got the freedom to tell people happy little stories that aren't true. In my line of work, that's called entertainment, and we did a whole thing last week about how I think there is a responsibility on the part of the entertainers to make it clear that when they're telling happy little stories that aren't true, that they're not true.
Right, like that idiot on Crossing Over.
Amanda makes a good point.
Okay, Amanda.
ThinkFest says, kids believe what their role models seem to believe. How can we ever hope to promote the idea that an accurate view of reality is a right when we're willing to lie for fun? Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Dead on. And can we take this to a more serious note here, away from Santa, towards something else where people are always telling you they want you to lie?
Sure.
Death. Okay? There's this whole thing about you don't believe in God, so what are you going to tell Grandma on her deathbed? I have only one remaining grandparent. It is my grandmother, and I don't think I will be able to tell her what I think I should tell her, because I got a family that would give me, a very difficult time forever. But to me, the idea of lying to someone on their deathbed so that they will spend their last few moments as a deluded, happy deluded fool is the most horrible thing that you could possibly do to someone.
You know, my dad handed down an old family story. He told me that when his grandfather died, on his deathbed, when most people would have been, you know, making last-minute conversions, he was reading Bertrand Russell.
Well, there you go. You know, I mean, my biggest fear in life, apart from severed heads, which I think we talked about last week, my second biggest fear is that on my deathbed, I might lose my nerve, lose my self-respect, and succumb to some stupid-ass belief system just so I can be happy for my last few minutes. You know, there's a lot of minutes in my life, and there are a lot of really happy ones, and I'm glad about that, but it doesn't have to be every single one. It's more important to have self-respect and a concern for truth than it is to spend your last few minutes thinking you're going to happy land.
Absolutely.
And are we done?
Well, remember last week we kept on going for a couple of minutes and then they cut us off. So I would say we can go on for one more minute and then
I think we were advised to run music. Okay. Let's wrap it up. This again was The Non-Prophets. Thank you for listening. Thank you everyone who participated in the chat room. Tell your friends, tell your co-workers that you think you can talk to about this stuff. Tell your relatives that you think you can talk to about this. That the Atheist Network exists, that they got all these great shows.
I'm Russell Glasser, your irregular co-host subbing for Vic Farrow.
And I am Jeff D., one of the two regular non-prophets. Remember, folks, we have no supernatural powers telling us what we ought to say. We're just using our brains.
Bye.
Bye-bye.